Hi guys, it's Melissa Arroyo, and I'm starting a new series called Melisa Chats, and I'm actually chatting with another Melissa. Her name is Melissa Emerson, and she's going to tell us about this wonderful and awesome, but not so awesome miracle that happened recently. And actually, it's two miracles that have happened.
My name is Melissa Emerson, and I recently had a procedure completed. Um, well, I don't know how much you want me to just dive into it or,
Yeah, dive into it, girl.
well, well, they tend to say Miracle Melissa. I had a hemodioblastoma tumor removal on June 13th of this year. It was my second one. It's a very rare tumor removal, and I had one also in May of 2019 that was completed. And the way I came out, I look normal to someone walking down the street. And
Mm,
and most people, what I'm told by the neurosurgeon and neurologist is that they tend to bleed out, and it tends to be a miracle that I came out this way. I'm able to walk, able to talk, and do everything that I'm able to do the way that I have twice.
mm.
So I feel very, very, very fortunate. And this time it's completely gone, completely removed, I was told. And
Yay, praise God.
absolutely 100%, 100%.
Mm,
And I feel when I'm walking and things, it's like, when you're out and about, people just like kind of gravitate towards me, and it's
mhm.
hard to explain. It's like they're always smiling, and I just feel very lifted and smiling back at them, and things like
Yeah.
that.
It almost sounds like you have the joy of the Lord and like people like can feel it on you. Like you really are, just so joyful. And I mean, it's not that you weren't upbeat. You were always like really funny and upbeat. And I met you. Well, let's backtrack and say how I met you. So we
Yeah.
have a mutual friend named Diana, and she hosts some awesome parties, with a bunch of awesome women. And we get together, and Melissa just happened to be one of these amazing women. And so we'd go to these parties, and I just really enjoy talking to you because you're just a bubbly person in general. And it seems like after all of this, like you just have more of just joy and exuberance, and you are yourself, but it's almost like magnified. And or it's before we started recording, we're talking about, like, oh, like how the way the windows behind her looks like a halo, but really I think that's kind of how you look to other people. You just like have this light about you. And
Mhm.
it's awesome that I think it sounds like it's giving you a confidence. And then how we go to the same church recently, she started going again. And actually, I want to talk to you about that too. But that pastor in particular likes to say it's Godfidence, like God confidence.
Mhm.
And so it gets stuck in my head sometimes. I know it's cheesy, but
No, it's
it is
okay.
different than self-confidence, having the Godfidence, the God confidence. But yeah, how was your experience like coming back to church?
It's absolutely amazing because before the tumor removal, I would get very, very emotional at church, and the anointment happening. You mentioned Diana; she brought me there. She had
Hmm.
me anointed. We did those things. It was absolutely powerful,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Truly believe that. Truly believe
When
that
was that?
something to do with it. Oh gosh, I can't even remember, to be honest. My memory
That's
has been
okay.
affected a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
some of the long term, the short term is pretty bad. But
Hmm.
I don't know. It's probably a
It's
year ago,
okay.
maybe 2 years ago. We did it a few times, couple times,
Hmm.
and that was pretty powerful. But the tears would flow. It was emotional,
Hmm.
but it was definitely. I do believe that may have something to do with it. I think that helped. I know when I will share a moment I think I shared with you before
Hmm.
going into surgery this time. You know, you're left in the room, at the hospital. I was at Methodist Stone Oak, and,
Hmm.
you're given the forms to sign and whatnot by the surgeon, and you have um, these things that could happen to you, right? Um, you know, that are pretty tragic. And it's the second time I've had to go through it. And the outcome could not be good. I mean, your life is at stake, right? And you're
Hmm.
sitting there and, you're feeling kind of alone. And, my husband was there, but it's like, I just remember just sitting in the hospital bed, like, oh my gosh, I have to sign this form again. And this is the part that makes me emotional, but there's like all these things, you're reading over the form, like, okay, death could occur, paralysis could occur, stroke could occur. That's all I remember, and then it was like things start to kind of go blurry because there's so many things that could happen at that moment. And you're thinking of your kids, you're thinking of your friends, you're thinking of some family. It's like, oh my gosh, this might be it. Here I go again. I might not come out of this, but I'm so strong willed and I'm like, no, I'm going to. And so what am I going to do? And I just remember having had a pen like this in my hand, and I just went, okay, now I'm gonna put the pen down. And I sat there and I put the pen down, and all I did was pray.
Hmm.
At a moment, I just prayed, and I prayed hard. I closed my eyes. I just took a moment and I prayed, and that's all I did. And to some people, this may sound very, if they're not spiritual, like, oh, cliche, whatever. But I kid you not, and I shared with my family. I felt something touch my shoulder, and it touched my
Hmm.
shoulder hard. And then I knew at that point I could open my eyes. It was okay to pick up the pen and it was okay to sign that paper. To this
Hmm.
day, when I was in the hospital, the very first thing I did when I woke up in that hospital room and I opened my eyes, because my motto was I was going to come out dancing this time. Not walking, I want to come out dancing. Okay. When I opened my eyes and they said, do you want some ice chips? Because you're in the recovery room. I said, no, I want to dance. And they laughed and said, no, we can't dance. And I said, hey, looks like we made it. We made it. I was so happy. So when I was in my room, my own room, and it was time for me at the point you get to get up and walk, I was determined.
Hmm.
For all these years, for 5 years, it's like, if you can't get up out of your bed, I had a nurse tell me, you will lay in that bed forever for the rest of your life. So I'm always
Hmm.
determined to get up and walk every day, right? I have to.
Hmm.
No, I have to. It's something I struggle with always, or I have a difficult time walking. So I knew I'm not going to walk with a walker. I'm not. And I got up and I was so determined. And I told the PT, no, I don't want the walker. And she looked at me and was, well, can you use like the IV thing? I said, no, I am going to walk. And I'm
Hmm.
always like just saying a little prayer and I get up and yeah, I started walking. So I believe that everything that happened up until then, the village that I had that praying for me, you all, the anointment that I'm not saying it right, but that occurred, everything that happened
Uh-huh.
till then, there was a cyst that was around the tumor this time that wasn't there the first time. If that's not an act of God, I mean, to protect that so that the surgeon could go in and remove it,
Hmm.
there was a lot that occurred. My most recent appointment, when I went back to the follow-up, my neurosurgeon came in and hugged me and hugged me. And he was just so moved, like, look at how great you look. I mean, look at this. Like, because this doesn't
Yeah.
happen. The
Yeah.
neurosurgeon or neurologist made a comment that, you must have guardian angels watching over you because that this happened twice. These tend to bleed out and you're still here and look at you, you know.
Hmm. And you're talking, it's been like what, a month, right? Since your surgery?
A little over a month.
Yeah, like this is just, miracles. I know
Right.
not a lot of people believe in miracles, and I think even like with the Christian faith, because there's been a lot of church hurt, right? Christians hurting Christians, and so it makes people not want to believe in God, or it's not the cultural norm anymore. People want to believe in other things, but here you are, as a believer standing in front of us, like having this beautiful, wonderful testimony where Jesus showed up when you were just like kind of losing it really
Mhm.
before your surgery, and you felt a hand on your shoulder. And I think when we're talking, at that party where Harley, that's Diana's daughter, by the way. Congratulations, Harley, if you watch this. Shout out. She's
Right.
gonna be going to A&M, and she's gonna be an Aggie. I'm an A&M San Antonio, so no judgment, but just, we're sister schools at least, so we're good. um, but yeah, so we were talking and you were mentioning that you were thinking that hand was Jesus, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's just different things that occur too, and I truly believe sometimes um sometimes I get stuck with words and connection, and
Mm-hmm.
it's part of what I have going on, but I do believe that, and even after the procedure, it's just different things that happen to me. Like I mentioned to you at the party, just going for a walk recently, at a park, and there's like these yellow butterflies kept coming towards me, and I was just so moved, and they kept landing on my leg, and I had one like just on my ankle, and it just wouldn't go away. And
Uh-huh.
it's like things just gravitate. And I think after this all occurred, it's just you start to things that maybe you took for granted when you have a
Mm-hmm.
life-changing moment like that, especially twice, you start to just kind of appreciate things that the Lord has blessed us with. You know what I mean? That before I was always one of those moms that's just hustle, hustle and bustle, hustle, bustles, go, 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 go,
Mm-hmm.
go. And you realize how much time was wasted all those years. It's like you have to slow down and appreciate what He has given us in front of us. It's just that's there. And I would like sometimes just stop and smell those flowers that are on the tree, embrace what's in front of
Yeah.
us that He's given us, He's gifted us. You
Mm-hmm.
really need to take the time to do that, because some of those other things can wait until tomorrow sometimes that aren't so important, and
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that. So I always say now
Yeah.
it's people, like I mentioned, they just gravitate. It could be at a grocery store, be anywhere, and they're just smiling. And I'm just like, okay. And then so I'm like, that's my
Uh-huh.
halo. So
Mm-hmm.
I use humor a lot to get through, because even though I was so sick still for the last 5 years, there's still things I'm struggling with, and I can hide,
Mm-hmm.
but it that will be there, and you just get through it. And I try to just share my story, and I use it to others as well when I see they're having that day, because I don't want what I have or had. It doesn't, how did I explain this to you also? It doesn't, if someone comes to me and they have like, a cut finger, it doesn't mean that their injury is any less than what I have. You know what I mean? Because I don't
Mm-hmm.
downgrade what anybody else has, because theirs is just as bad, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And just so people can understand how severe the symptoms were when those 5 years, do you mind sharing a little bit about your experience?
It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, from the nausea, the vomiting, the balance. I mean, I still have balance issues. I get nauseous still. I mean, it's still very soon. I'm very fatigued, but I struggled with that also. I mean, there was, oh gosh, I don't even know. I could go on and on. There was the dizziness. Some of it I forget. The memory issues. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I I'm drawing a blank, but um,
Yeah. It's funny
there
because you
was a
said
lot
memory
of things.
issues.
I mean,
You said
it's like
memory issues. I'm like, no, I'm trying to blank.
I know, if you think about like having
That's
like
funny.
the flu all the time, it was like all the time. I mean, and it's like especially the vomiting. It just did not stop. It was all the time, and it would just get worse and worse. It affect my vision. It affect my driving. So now it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh. When I met with my neurosurgeon, he was hugging me and I was hugging him. I'm like, it's just like when you can get in a vehicle and go, oh my gosh, I can see at night, or you can go to a parking lot and go, I can see across the parking lot now and it's crystal clear. Like those are things, it's like, even though a surgeon can fix that, but it's just,
Mm-hmm.
and you can come out the way I can look to someone like, how do I say it? Like, even though I can, because I do have limitations, park in a handicap spot, that's one thing I do struggle with, because you cannot judge people, right, by their appearance.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I've had to learn to and teach my kids, because you can look so normal to somebody, but deep down you're still struggling, you know? And
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought. So
That's
that
okay.
happens.
But yeah, I was following.
But
It sounds like there was a lot of things that were affecting you physically and mentally because you just, I mean, it was a brain tumor. You had, that, so it wasn't just affecting your body,
Yeah.
but also the way you're thinking and processing things. But even though you were going through that, I know that when we would talk, especially in when we went to those parties, there was, this sense of like, I'm gonna get through this. I will get through it.
And the confusion, I still have that. The confusion be
Mm.
really bad. You can look
Yeah.
at somebody and like, oh, I've seen you before.
Mhm.
Like, who are you? That's
Mhm.
sometimes that's very difficult. Or sounds used to be very, very bad. And now
Mhm.
sometimes when I first get up, this I can't hear. It sounds very, very muffled. But then I have to do a lot of, like I tell the neurologist, um, self-talk. And the neurosurgeon, it takes a lot of positivity and a lot of self-talk to turn things around every day, and getting up
Mhm.
at the same time every day, or you can kind of spiral into a mood. So there's a lot of life change things you have to do. But
Yeah.
again, every day that I wake up, the first thing I say is, oh my gosh, God, thank you for waking me up. Thank you for giving
Mhm.
me this day. And I have a window
Yeah.
I look out and I just thank him. And then when I get down the stairs, I thank him. I thank him for letting me able to walk every day. Like my motto is just keep walking, keep talking. I'm here. That's just been it since the first day, because I'm so thankful, because it could have been a lot worse, right? Just like anything in life could be
Mhm.
a lot worse. It really could have been a lot worse, because if you look up these hemodioblastoma, and it was on my cerebellum, they're
Mhm.
very, very rare to have. You can have a brain tumor, and you can have many types of brain tumors, and people have surgeries on brain tumors all the time,
Mhm.
but they're very rare. And I even found out myself, I didn't know they bleed out. Well, bleeding out is very dangerous. And I didn't have to have any type of blood transfusion. I didn't
Mhm.
have to, so it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know how this happens, except for miracles, and that's all I keep being told. So, and I've
Mhm.
had a great medical team on my side, absolutely hands down. I mean, and I wouldn't change them for the world. So I'm very, very blessed to have had that, both times, but especially this time. They've
Yeah.
been amazing. And and I worked the last, oh gosh, what was it, 3 years before this surgery. Um,
Mhm.
and my employer was absolutely amazing too. I'm very supportive during that time. They knew what was going on, and so when I would get sick, I mean, I worked. I never called out. In that 3 years, I think I called out maybe twice. I don't know. So
Wow.
I would, I use, I have a couple older kids, and I would tell them there's no excuse. If I can work through this, you have no
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah,
So
and it's hard to argue with that.
they laugh at me, and I try to push them. If your mom could be at her computer, just like, and run.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to be able to work at home, and I, talk to patients. So I would use my story sometimes to try to help them too through their times.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's what we have to do in life too, to support each other, because times are difficult. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about this too, uplifting not just, people who are, not believers, but also believers specifically. I mean, anyone really getting to hear about not only one miracle, but two miracles, because people could like write off, like, oh no, that's just a coincidence. What It's happened one time. But when it happens twice, it's really hard to call it a coincidence, right? And especially because both times you recovered and it wasn't, you didn't have any like life altering, I mean, aside from a couple of things because you that tumor in the 5 years, but there was some life altering things. Oh, you remember something?
I remember something you asked me. When you asked me how was it. Well, at
Yeah.
CC, when I went before the surgery, and I got so
Hmm.
emotional. And I was saying, I remember, was it Pastor Ed? And sometimes it would almost feel like he was speaking directly to me when he would
Hmm.
talk, and he would say things, like. if you're struggling with illness, if you're struggling with this, struggling with that, and sometimes I'd feel like, oh my gosh, and the tears would just fall and fall, and I just was like, oh, and I remember the last time I went, I got so emotional, and I almost felt like it was like I could go, but I couldn't go anymore, right? And I was almost
Yeah.
struggling with my faith at the time because I
Uh-huh.
almost got almost to a point where I got angry because I was getting sicker. I felt like I wasn't getting
Yeah.
better, right? Because the tumor was growing. It wasn't going away. And I got upset. Like it wasn't, and I was almost losing faith, if that makes sense. And I would
Yeah.
talk to
Makes sense.
some friends about it and stuff, and some family, and I don't remember who said to me, well, that's where you really have to believe in faith. Like you have to believe in God, right? And and I tried, but then I stopped going. I stopped going because I just and then I think it was Diana. She had me go to a prayer service with her, but it was somewhere else, and and we did a lot of prayers, right? And it was great, and I did get a little emotional then too, and it was good, and it
Uh-huh.
was very touching, and I think that helped me again. Um, and I truly believe all that helped. And and then but yeah, I didn't go again until this last weekend, and it was
Mm-hmm.
my daughter who pushed, and a friend of hers, because a friend of hers really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go to that church, and it was amazing. Then it was like my son went, my husband went, and I just laughed. I said, pretty soon then another friend of hers got mad. It's like I'm gonna end up with a whole van I'm gonna have to bring. It was very cute,
Yeah.
but I went, and I was so glad I went, because it was like now it's more of I need the prayers for healing, right? But it felt
Mm-hmm.
good to go because it wasn't this time when he spoke and he said his piece. I was like, oh my gosh, like now it's like I just need it for healing. I don't need it for. I lost my train of thought though. How he said it, I don't need it for like the medical anymore. I mean, yes, for
Yeah.
healing, but I don't. And I didn't cry. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
that was huge. I mean, I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
times where I will, but it was like, it was just, it made me smile this
Yeah.
time. It
Like,
was
because
like,
you're on the other end of it, it's more like recovery healing versus like, okay, like, can you get rid of this tumor, please, God,
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
yes. But it was like all those times I went, all the prayers, all the
Uh-huh.
village I have around me, all the prayers that have been coming through,
Yeah.
it works. It actually works. Like all these prayers
Answered
work.
prayers.
God does
Yeah.
listen to you. And he was saying that at the service, in other realms, but I could clap and I could say amen because he does listen. He does listen. Like when all
Mm-hmm.
else fails, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth, that is your person you go to, and he does listen to you. And I truly believe that. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I honestly do. I have a different outlook because I come from a point in my life where I wasn't that way. I didn't. I mean, many years ago, especially until I had this life change event the first time. I came on a different end. You know, so it, yeah. it's-
So, were you a believer before the first time you had a brain tumor?
I was, but not to the extent that I am now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a little while ago, you said having the tumors both times was a blessing. I just really love that you said that. I think it's like, who would say that other than someone who had two miracles happen, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy sometimes to think about it that way, but God does work that way. And sometimes it looks different for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, I think for those people who are, waiting for the healing, they may feel discouraged. And, my hope is that maybe they'll come across this video and have the faith and understand like, yeah, it's normal to not, be full-fledged in your faith when it looks so dark and bleak and it doesn't feel good.
Hmm. Well, and I think also I always feel like, and not to feel so alone, because there were times where I did feel so alone. And it was like, no, because there's so many times I say it's so hard to make people understand what it is I don't understand, what I'm going through. And I have to get through those tough days on my own. And it's a lot of self-talk. And it's I don't ever want people to feel sorry for me. So I just have to get through those days on my own. But it's like, I see a lot of people when I go out and about and they have their I'll say tools that they need, right? And that's okay. It's okay if you need those items, and I choose to just do it a different way. And if you have to have those things, you have to have those things, right? But you got to do what you have to do for you, um, and just use your village of people around you. If it's a neighbor, and if you see somebody walk, you cross paths with them, stop and say hi to them, smile at them. That's just, I don't know what it is, but that's just what I do. And when I see people now, it's like I've always kind of been that way, but it's more so different now. It's different because I go, hey, I was almost gone twice, and I'm still here for a reason. So maybe that's what it is, to just touch people. I don't know, but he
Yeah.
kept me for a reason, and that's what I feel it is too.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I think so too. And you, again, you already had like this very personable personality, right? You're a very outgoing person. I think, this is how God's highlighting, like, see the things that I can do and help you with. And you're also not alone. And here are some people around you that are just joys to be around. So I think, I don't know, it's just amazing. Your story is so cool. It just makes me all giddy inside to hear it and see
thank
your
you.
joy. Just say that you have a very, like, again, a radiant smile after. I mean, again, before you did too, but even so more so now, you're just like, I don't know, just like woohoo energy. I don't know
Oh,
how
other
else to
people
put
just
it.
saying that to me. That's what I mean. I can't explain it. It's like, okay, and even my kids say that, and I'm just like, well, I had a relative say that to me recently. He was just like, well, hey, call me anytime you want to talk and make me laugh, and I was like, okay, So it's just you just I'm just like, I'm just being myself. But I just think it's when you have
Mhm.
those life changing experiences, I will
Yeah.
say you just can't take things for granted. And I think so many people in life do so. And
Yeah.
and and I was one of them. I know I was. So it
Mhm.
changes you. It absolutely changes you. So
Yeah. And we all have something that we deal with that's very heavy.
mhm,
And for you, it was in a medical form. But I think we all have, our crosses to bear, right? And we can demonstrate the love of Christ even in the dark periods and especially after those dark periods, that we can reach out to each other and let each other know that we're not alone, and remind each other of the power of God through us. So it's not, just like, oh, God's only good when he's doing good things. God
right.
can use things that are terrible in a good way, whether it's medical or something terrible that someone inflicted on you, whatever it is, God can use it.
Mhm, absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this.
Of course, absolutely. I'm glad that you brought it up and that I was here to,
Yeah.
talk about it and share. I've had, many, so, well, many people, several people tell me you keep sharing your story. I want to hear more. And I just,
Yeah.
okay. And this was the first time. So other than
Yeah. Yay.
talking, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm glad that I hope it wasn't too weird.
like that's
Yeah.
just a conversation. So that's
Yeah.
nice. Instead of
Yeah.
questioning.
Of course. It helps that we know each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. Yeah. Thank you.